Following the Oval Office meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy and President Trump, Nebraska Congressman Mike Flood said today he's disappointed by Zelenskyy's actions.
I have to think that when President Zelenskyy got in his vehicle leaving the White House, he had to be thinking to himself, what did I just do? And I'm somebody that has supported Ukraine funding since I've been a member of Congress.
Flood also talked about what we can expect following Trump's address to a joint session of Congress on Tuesday. This includes all the executive orders he's signed so far, including more security at the border, a national energy effort, and the Lake and Riley Act.